Let us now discuss the Article 3, or also known as the Bill of Rights. And this is our last article that we are going to discuss in the 1987 Philippine Constitution. But this is very important because Bill of Rights as a declaration and enumeration of a person's right and privileges which the Constitution is designed to protect against violations by the government or by an individual or group of individuals. So Bill of Rights prevent us to become an ignorance to our different rights, naturally and constitutionally. So it is very important to understand and to know also the different rights or the inclusion of Bill of Rights to protect us in a different violations either from the government or from an individual or group of individuals. So here in Bill of Rights, we will discuss the different classification of rights. It can be natural or political rights. So let us see what are those rights that we must enjoy in our country. So again, we have different classes of rights that we are going to discuss here in Article 3. First is natural rights. So again, from the word itself, a natural rights or by means of nature, or these are the different rights possessed by a citizen without being granted to a state, which is or which are given by a God as a human being created to his image so that he may live a happy life. So these are a different rights given, we believe that given by God because of being equal to the different humans or from the other humans as well. Another is constitutional rights. So when we say constitutional rights, those rights provided by a laws promulgated by the lawmaking body or by our laws itself or our constitution may be abolished by the same body as well. So again, the difference between natural rights and constitutional rights, natural rights without law or provide the provision of laws, we must um, enjoy the following rights given by a God. So another one is constitutional rights, so provided by the law or by our constitution. The Article 3. According to Section 1 of the Article 3 that no person shall be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the laws. Meaning, here in Section 1, it declares our natural rights, wherein uh, the right to life, liberty, or property. And meaning, we must enjoy the right to life, liberty, and property. However, we um our rights in property or liberty may be limited because of the due process of law. Or we must enjoy our right to life, liberty, or property. However, it may be cancelled by means of laws or the provision of laws. Another thing in Section 1, nor shall any person be denied the equal protection of the laws. Meaning, regardless of our differences, of our race, of our social class or socioeconomic class, must judge the equal protection of the law, or nor any person be denied the equal protection of the law. So meaning if the ordinary citizen can penalize by means of illegal parking, same also with the government officials. So that's the meaning of equal protection of the laws. And there are two aspects of due process of law by means of procedural due process. So when we say procedural due process, it refers to the method or manner by which the law is enforced. So for example of procedural due process is by means of undergoing with the court or hearing in the court. Same also with the process of legal papers such as warrant of arrest and search warrant. Another is substantive due process. So when we say substantive due process, is the law would be enforced is fair, reasonable, and just. It means that our laws in our constitution, it must be fair, reasonable, and just. So it must be equal and according also to the rule of law or to the equal protection of the laws. So meaning our action must be not or must be unconstitutional, not be unconstitutional. So for example, no person shall be deprived of life without due process of law. Therefore, we cannot deprive of life or we cannot kill somebody without due process of law, liberty, or property. Section 2. Provide the right of the people to be secure in the persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures of whatever nature and for any purpose shall be inviolable. Or in other words, that Section 2 emphasizes our right to be secure, secure in our houses, papers, or any property. Same as well with our physical body because our physical body can be considered as our property as well. According to Section 2, that our right to be secure shall be inviolable or we cannot violate the right to be secure. But if there is a warrant or search warrant or warrant of arrest shall issue except upon probable cause to be determined personally by the judge after examination, he may produce and particularly describe the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized to be secure or suspended. So let us define what is the difference between search warrant and warrant of arrest. So when we say search warrant, it is a legal paper or an order or writing issued by a judge and directed to a peace officer commanded him to search for a personal property and bring it before the court. Ma ang ating right to be secure if there is a search warrant provided by a judge and to command a peace officer to search and seize our property. If that property is pwede magpatibay for that case according to the court. So for example, if there is a warrant or search warrant by means of the case of illegal drugs, paraphernalia have been confiscated, seized by a peace officer, it must be directed to the court. Another is warrant of arrest. When we see warrant of arrest, same also, it's a legal paper, an order or writing to command a peace officer, but to arrest someone or bring to a jail charged with a crime. So the difference with the two is search warrant to seize a property, which can be um, an evidence to your crime. While warrant of arrest is you as yourself to bring it to the court. Remember that there um your rights as a citizen and the right of the peace officer to arrest and to search a property. However, you as an ordinary citizen or as a Filipino citizen, you have the right to refuse the search or the arrest if there is no illegal paper, especially if the legal paper is not signed or issued by a judge. So another thing, we have the probable cause. It refers to apparent facts discovered through logical inquiry. So to issue a search warrant or warrant of arrest, there is a probable cause or a process through logical inquiry wherein the judge can issue a warrant of arrest to arrest you and search warrant to search and seize a property in a specific place or location. The time that we can arrest someone without warrant of arrest, or when can warrantless arrest transpire? Police officers legally make an arrest without a warrant when the person, so we have the following, when the person to be arrested has committed, is actually committing, or is attempting to commit an offense. So for example, a thief, a thief in a public market. So hindi naman pwede na to arrest that thief because he is a caught in the act, hindi naman pwede na humingi pa siya ng warrant of arrest to arrest him, di ba? So, it's a citizen's arrest. Pwede natin sabihin na um, caught in the act or attempting to commit an offense. Pwede rin po iyon. And we can arrest him or her without warrant of arrest. Another is when an offense has been committed and has personal knowledge of facts indicating that the person to be arrested has committing it. Um, Persons who are accessories in crime or has a knowledge or personal knowledge to perform the crime. And lastly, when the person to be arrested is a prisoner who has escaped from a penal establishment, or yung mga nakatakas nga po sa kulungan. So, we can arrest them without warrant of arrest because hindi pa naman sila, kumbaga, they have an unfinished um, sentence to their cases or violations. However, sa mga situation na ito, we can arrest you or we can issue a warrant of arrest. Another rights is by means of Section 3 of Article 3. the privacy of communication. According to Article 3, the privacy of communication and correspondence shall be inviolable except upon lawful order of the court or when public safety or order requires otherwise as prescribed by law. Meaning, when we say Section 3, it emphasizes our right to privacy. Our privacy is a fundamental rights or fundamental human rights. It should be inviolable. However, it must except upon if there is a lawful order. For example, if you are under investigation or you are in a procedural due process, your right to privacy must maybe can be suspended or revoked. Another is when public safety or order requires otherwise as prescribed by law. To that any evidence obtained in violation of this or the preceding section shall be inadmissible for any purpose in any proceeding. A good example of this situation is the wiretapping cases. And any conversation. So these wiretapping cases pass into law to seek to punish the wiretapping and other related violations of the right to privacy of communication specifically. So it also intends to stop the practice by officer of the government of spying on one another and most obnoxious instrument of oppression or arbitrary power. Not prohibit the recording of public speeches, but only the private communication or conversation. Especially when that wiretap or wiretape be used as an evidence to a certain crime. From Section 4. That no law shall be passed abridging the freedom of speech, of expression or the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and petition the government to redress of grievances. So when we say Section 4, this is our freedom of speech of expression or the press itself. So we have here the different ways on how to express our freedom of expression by means of speech, by means of press, freedom of assembly, and the freedom of petition. But always take note that yes, we have a freedom of speech and expression, but our freedom of speech or expression is not absolute because it can also violate someone's right. So for example is the defamation. Defamation can be um, classified into two by means of oral and writing. So when we say oral, that is slander. While when we say by writing, that is libel. As well with the press, the freedom or the right to freedom of assembly and the freedom of petition. Always remember that we can enjoy the following rights, but this is not absolute or enjoy your freedom of speech without damaging or broken other properties and other rights. Right is Section 6, the liberty of abode and the right to travel. The liberty of abode and of changing the same within the limits prescribed by law shall not be impaired, exempt upon lawful order of the court. Neither shall the right to travel be impaired except the interest of national security, public safety, or public health, as may be provided by law. So here in section 6, it declares our two rights, the liberty of abode or yung paninirahan, and the right to travel or ang paglalakbay. But the to abode and the right to travel is not also absolute. It can be impaired by means of the following interest. First is national security. So for example, if there is a war or a declaration of war in a certain country, you cannot go there because public safety requires it. Another one is public safety. So public safety in terms of natural disaster, for example, is the last volcanic eruption in Taal. So if public safety requires it, you cannot go there. Another one is public health. Just like today, we experience pandemic. So our right to travel is suspended due to public health requires it. Section 9, private property shall not be taken for public use without just compensation. So this one is by the power of eminent domain. Again, when we say eminent domain, this is one of the inherent powers of the state, wherein is irremovable. Meaning, we can take the private property, but it should be for public use. And we cannot take the private property without just compensation. So meaning there is a proper compensation for that private property to take by the government for public use. For example, there is a road widening and your certain property must be taken or needed to be taken by the government for the public use of roads, they need to pay you with a proper compensation. So, for example, the issue is disagree with the payment or the exact payment. So, what will be the issue? Or, for example, hindi ka papayag that your property or a certain property shall be taken due to road widening. So, hindi po pa pwede. Wala po tayong magagawa because the state itself has an eminent domain to take a property for public use. However, if kukunin yung property dahil lamang din tatayuan ng private resort or private roads, of course, that is illegal or that is also your rights to your property. However, always remember that it your property can be taken by the government only for public use. But if it's not, they they cannot take your property. Other rights, Section 12. So Section 12, this is the emphasizes of the right of the accused. So paragraph 1, any person under investigation competent and independent counsel, preferably of his own choice. If the person cannot afford the service of counsel, he must be provided with one. These rights cannot be waived except in writing in the presence of counsel. Meaning, when we say paragraph 1 of section 12, article 3, This is also known as the Miranda rights, that the peace officer must be inform you the different rights of the accused, wherein you have the right to remain silent. That is one. Another is anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. And another is you have the right to have an attorney. And if you cannot provide, they are the one or they are the one who will provide you to a service of counsel or an attorney. That is why here in the Philippines we have a PAO or the Public Attorney's Office. So that is paragraph 1. How about paragraph 2? Paragraph 2, no torture, force, violence, threat, intimidation, or any other means which vitiate the free will shall be used against him. Secret detention places, solitary, incommunicado, or other similar forms of detention are prohibited. Meaning, there is no such thing as inhumane detention here in the Philippines. But in reality, we have the cases here. For example, the hidden detention at the back of the um, bookshelves somewhere in Manila. So that is illegal. So again, Bill of Rights is very important to protect us, no, from the different illegal actions also of the government. Third paragraph, the confession or admission obtained in violation of this section of this or section 17 hereof shall be inadmissible in evidence against him. So for example, torture. So for example, you are forced to say it that you are admitting the crime. So if napatunayan po iyon, that evidence is inadmissible. The fourth one is the law shall provide for penal and civil sanctions for violations. Or there is only unspecific sanctions or penal for your violations. And only the court or the judge can convict you for your crime. This is our last section that we are going to discuss. The section 15 of the article 3. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended except in cases of invasion or rebellion when the public safety requires it. The writ of habeas corpus. When we see writ of habeas corpus, this is our political rights that every one of us has the right to undergo with the court. If there is a cases that we are going to hear. So always remember that um, the writ of habeas corpus cannot be suspended except in case of in times of martial law or cases of invasion or rebellion. So meaning in terms of martial law, our writ of habeas corpus or the right of undergoing with the court is pwedeng masuspend due to focusing on the invasion or rebellion. However, if there is no martial law or invasion or rebellion in our country, we must undergo with um, the due process of our laws or the procedural due process itself, which is undergoing with the court. Detain someone without undergoing with the court. So always remember that it is your right to hear your side as well. And only the judge can convict you or can give you a penal and sanctions of the said cases or violations. always remember that our Bill of Rights states the different rights of a person, whether it is natural or political rights. But the importance of knowing our rights is knowing also that our rights is not absolute. Yes, we have different rights and we must enjoy the following. But then again, this is not an absolute right that we must enjoy everything and all the times. So there is also a limitation of our rights.